Hey there, it's Perry with PapercraftingThreads. Thanks for joining me. Today I have a fun movement card, a pop-up slider card, and it's way easier than you think. Feel free to use items from your stash. Let's get started. I'm going to start with using some stamps from the Gathering Moments stamp set. I have scraps of pecan pie, Cajun craze, crushed curry, basic beige, and basic white. Using early espresso, for our sentiment stamp. And this is a very old ink pad, so it's a little bit dry. I should re-ink it, but this should work for today. Oh, good thing I have two sides. To ink this way so I don't have a halo. And then the other thing I'm going to use with that color are these little berries. That little halo is not going to matter. Do a little tone on tone with crushed curry ink on crushed curry cardstock. Cajun craze on Cajun craze. Also with the Cajun craze, I'm using the mushroom or toadstool. And pecan pie for the acorn. Oops. Being in too much of a hurry. And then also in pecan pie cardstock, pecan pie ink, and some gold embossing powder. Have that ready. Inking up this large leaf. And then immediately going to the gold embossing powder. And you see how that is solid? I want to flick off as much as possible. So it looks like there isn't any on there, but trust me, there is some on there. And then using a heat tool. So I hope you can see that little bit of shimmer on there. And the reason I flicked off most of it is this is a distinctive ink stamp, and I didn't want a solid blob of gold. I wanted just that little hint in there. And then I'm die cutting this greeting with this Textured Notes die with this cute little pattern around the edge. So I will be right back. And then I have a piece of Cajun craze cardstock that measures 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. And I'm embossing it with the Gathering Leaves embossing folder. And I want the leaves to run this way. So I will be right back. And then I'm fussy cutting each one of these. I have a piece from the Gathering Together Designer Series paper pack, and this measures 2 1/2 inches by 2 1/2 inches. I have another piece from the same paper pack that measures 1 1/2 by 4 inches. I have a piece from the Autumn Toile Designer Series paper pack, and this measures 1 inch by 4 inches. I have a piece of basic white that measures 4 inches by 4 1/4 inches. Another piece of the Gathering Together Designer Series paper, and this measures 1 1/2 by 2 1/2. another piece from that paper pack, and this measures 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. And back to the Adam 12 Designer Series paper, and this measures 1 3/4 by 4 inches. This is part of my mechanism, and I'm calling it the spanner. It measures 2 inches by 5 1/4 inches, and it's scored at 1/2 inch on each end. This is another piece of thick basic white, and this is the pop-up strip, and it measures 1 1/2 by 9 3/4, and it's scored at 3/4 inch, 5 1/4 inches, 7 inches, 7 1/2, and 9 1/4. And then I have the base, and this is 4 1/4 inches by 11 inches. Again, thick basic white cardstock, and scored down the middle at 5 1/2. So we're going to begin with folding this in half. Being sure to burnish this score line really well. And then I want this piece of DSP. I'll be using liquid glue for most of this. So I want something strong because it's going to have moving parts. Center this panel. Spread that glue. Then with this strip, this 3/4 inch tab gets folded this direction. Burnish that well. And then this is curling back on itself. As are all of these score lines here. So it kind of looks like a snail curling back on itself. Now time to adhere this. So I'm applying my glue to this flap. And adhering it approximately down the middle here. And butting it up to the score line. Then I have this strip with the 1/2 inch score lines on each end. Folding those as mountain folds going the same direction. And this strip is going on here. Again, spread that glue with the bone folder. And then this will be applied here. And I'm using about 2 fingers width away from the edge here, from the edge of that DSP. So applying liquid glue on that flap and the bottom flap. Using the bone folder to press that down and adhere. Now we need to apply this piece. We're going to put glue here, and it's going to go over here. And put it right here. And then I'm closing the flap and letting that mechanism move. Whoops. I want it to find where it wants to live. And you see how that scooched just a tiny bit, which is fine. And then I'm using my bone folder to press inside there to really adhere that. And now the card closes flat and that mechanism pops up. This piece and this will be glued on here, and I want to make sure my vines are going the same direction. And I'm lining that up on that left side. And placing this over here. And that's where your message can be written. And then this tiny piece here, applying my glue to this little raised platform. Placing my finger under there to support it. And adhering that. Now to adhere my leaves. So putting glue right down the middle here. And placing this on top of that. This one is going here, so I need glue only on the bottom. And this one, again, towards the base. Actually, I want this one to tuck under here. And stick out a little bit. And there's the inside of the card. And last but not least, loose gold sequins. And there you have it, a pop-up slider card.
Find written instructions over on my blog at... If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, share, and thanks for watching. Bye!